Fried rice has always been one of my takeout favorites, and it's so much better when you make it at home and even better when you make it surf and turf style, and I'm going to show you how I did it. Before we get started, make sure you subscribe to my channel and hit that bell, that way you're not missing out on any of my content. Golden Steer sent me their ship and shore package, which includes this New York strip steak and also a Western Australian lobster tail. So that's what I'll be using today for my proteins, along with some shrimp, and I'll make sure to add the link to these products in the description just in case anyone's interested. I just cut that steak up into small bite-sized pieces, and I seasoned it lightly with Golden Steer Sergio seasoning. You don't want to do too much with the seasoning because we're also going in with some low sodium soy sauce and also oyster sauce, so it doesn't need too much. You don't want it to be overly salty. How much you use of these products is going to be dependent on how big your steak is. This one's about 15 ounces, so I used about 2 tablespoons of soy sauce and 2 tablespoons of that oyster sauce. I also added about 1.5 teaspoons of baking soda, and that's going to help to tenderize your meat. Then you'll just mix it together with some tongs, and then it should look like this, and you'll set that aside and start working on your lobster tail. You're just going to remove the meat from the shell, give it a rinse, and then go ahead and chop it up into bite-sized pieces. Again, we're keeping it light with seasoning, so we're just going to do Sergio seasoning, a little bit of paprika for color, and then also some baking soda. Lastly, you'll give that a mix until the seasonings are worked into the meat and it looks like this, and then you'll set it aside with a steak. You can leave this out, but I also added some shrimp. I just added Sergio seasoning, paprika, and baking soda, just like I did with the lobster, and then set it aside. I wanted to make some type of garlic butter for the rice, just like Benihana's does, so I used Golden Steer's roasted garlic and herb butter, and I added a little bit of soy sauce to that, and then I mixed it in until it looked like this. And you'll want to make sure that garlic butter is softened somewhat, that way it's easier to mix in your soy sauce. For this next part, a wok is ideal, but I don't have one, so I'm just using this large kind of roasting pan I have, and I'm adding some avocado oil to it and putting it over medium-high heat. We're just going to do that to get a nice golden sear on these steak bites. Once they're seared on both sides, we're going to add a good dollop of that garlic butter we made and then mix it in until all pieces are coated, and then we're going to remove those from the pan and set them aside. You'll want to lower the heat just a little bit, that way you don't overcook the lobster and it doesn't get chewy, but you'll just add that in, stir it around. It only takes a few minutes. For some reason this part didn't record, but once the lobster was almost fully cooked, I added some of that garlic butter just like I did with the steak, mixed it around, and removed it from the pan. I added a little bit more oil, added the shrimp to the pan, and then I just seared them on both sides before adding a dollop of that garlic butter again, mixing it around, and then removing that from the pan as well. Next, we're going to add our onions, and there's going to be some flavor bits on the bottom of the pan, so I'm just going to deglaze with just maybe 2 tablespoons of shao wine. Then you'll just use your wooden spoon, spatula, whatever, to scrape up those flavor bits from the bottom. Once the onions are translucent, I go in with some peas and carrots, and then also the whites of the green onions. Let that cook down just a little bit, and then I'll add in some minced garlic. Once the garlic is fragrant, you'll push all those veggies to the side, add some oil to the pan, and then cook down your scrambled eggs. Once those are cooked down and mashed up, you're going to mix everything together, and then you'll add in some day-old rice. Having day-old rice is really important for this dish, so what you'll do is the day before you plan to make the fried rice itself, you will take just the rice, you'll cook it, let it cool down, store it in the fridge overnight, and what that'll do is dry it out and make for a better texture for the fried rice. Once the rice is in the pan, you're going to spread it out thin and then break up any clumps that you might see in the rice, and then you're going to mix it with the vegetables, and then we're going to move on to seasoning it. Again, I did not measure any of these ingredients. This is where it's going to be key to taste as you go and season to your own taste. I started by adding some low sodium soy sauce, and then I'm also going to go in with just a tad of dark soy sauce. This is mainly just for the color. It is still soy sauce though, it is salty, so just be careful not to add too much. Once the soy sauces are added, I go in with just a little bit of oyster sauce as well, and then I do a light sprinkling of ground white pepper. We're also going to go in with a little bit of sesame seed oil. This stuff is a seasoning oil. It's very concentrated, and it can be overpowering if you use too much, so just be careful. This part is optional, but I like to add a little bit of white sugar to balance out from all the saltiness, and then I give it a stir before adding my bean sprouts and the greens for my green onions, and then a couple dollops of that garlic butter. You'll give it another good stir, and then we're going to go ahead and add back in our proteins, which is that lobster, shrimp, and those steak bites. Once those are added, you'll give it one final stir, and this is how it should look. Now for serving, you can serve it just as is, just like this, or you can drizzle it with a little bit of yum yum sauce and some sliced green onion. Either way, it's so good. The recipe will be in the description. Definitely try it and let me know what you think.